There's actual physiological benefits. There's a helper's high. You actually have serotonin release when you do something kind, and your cortisol, your stress goes down. It combats mental depression and loneliness because it creates human connection when you do something for another person. You work on your networking skills when you're in community and volunteering and gathering. It's great for your career. And then the holy grail of all of it is you find your purpose, like why you're here on this earth, which is what ended up happening to me.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hersh Rephun, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My guest today on Truth Tastes Funny is Heidi Johnson. Heidi is a nonprofit founder, a storyteller, and overall a believer in good. She uses the power of connection to bring people together through her work in the nonprofit sector. She spent about a decade communicating powerful stories to inspire service through her blog and her podcast, Charity Matters, while serving as the executive director of a youth leadership organization. Heidi's one of the founders of the nonprofit Spiritual Care Guild at Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, where she's a past trustee on the hospital's board and the Spiritual Care Advisory Board. She's been recognized for multiple service awards, including the Cardinals Award, the highest recognition of service in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Heidi's work's been published by Thrive Global, Medium, Conscious Magazine. She has a monthly column about making a difference in Force Magazine, and she's a first-time author with her best-selling book, Change for Good. Heidi and her husband are the very proud parents of three incredible sons, and I'm so glad to have Heidi here on the show. Welcome to Truth Tastes Funny.
Thank you, Hersh. Thank you for having me. It's so fun to be in the passenger seat, not the driver's seat for a change. I kind of like it.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Well,
Yeah, it's great.
let's talk about let's get into your origin story a little bit. How did you become
Okay.
a nonprofit superhero?
Oh, geez. You know what? We all have backstories, and that's really what I love to tell in Charity Matters. Uh, I'm Irish, and none of my stories are shorter, so
That's okay.
I'll do it as quickly as I can. But about 23 years ago, actually, this week, I got that phone call in the middle of the night, that one that kind of they warn you about that changes your life. Um, it was from the US Embassy, and they were telling me that there had been a horrible accident. And a couple days before, my parents and their best friends had left on vacation for Mexico, celebrating 60th birthdays, four couples having the time of their life. And the caller was telling me that they'd been hit by a bus and that three people were dead and two were critically injured. And everything kind of changed in that moment in my whole life and everything. My mother was killed. My dad was in a coma. My husband flew to Mexico and saved my dad's life and got him back
Oh my.
to Los Angeles, where he died twice and was resuscitated, but he stayed in a coma for almost a month. And during that time, we had just, I couldn't, in a lifetime, couldn't pay back what our community held us up with. We had everything you could want with family and friends and food and faith, and we had everything. Um, and my dad ended up coming home that Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving Day. And he had woken up to find out that his wife of 36 years was gone and his best friends were gone and the funerals had happened. But he was going to be okay. And he is okay. He turned 86 just the other day and he's
Oh, that's
fantastic.
great to hear. Yeah.
But a year later, almost a year to the day, I got a phone call from a friend who was a Catholic chaplain at Children's Hospital Los Angeles and said he was the only chaplain for 300,000 children and they needed help and he had an idea. And if I could come down and bring friends. And I said, no, 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 I have nothing to give. I can't. I have nothing. And saying no to a priest is not really, usually a good idea. So nothing usually
Right.
go well. And so, needless to say, we went down there. And we were on a tour, and to shorten the story, we met a woman who was with her only son, and she's running through the halls when she sees Father John. And she tells us that Father John had been with her every single day for a month after her son was run over in carpool line and was really her emotional lifeline. And she announced to us that he was going home on Thanksgiving Day. And when I heard the word Thanksgiving Day, I don't know what it was, a lightning bolt, a moment. But I knew we were starting a nonprofit right then and there. I was given this crazy opportunity to give back this gift of faith that I had in my situation and pay it forward to tens of thousands of children and families who didn't have a chaplain. And so today, now 22 years later, literally this week, we have a $10 million interfaith center. We have chaplains of religions. I don't even know what they are. We have 30 chaplains. They're on the medical team. They do rounds with the doctors. We're a national template of pediatric chaplaincy. So children's hospitals all over the country follow us. And more than that, we changed the culture of a 100-year-old institution that has brought faith, whatever that is, whatever that means to you, into the medical experience. And that's where it all began, and everything just took off from there. And once I kind of did the U-turn, the career went away. The career became all about philanthropy and making difference. My life kind of changed forever.
Wow.
There's a lot to unpack there.
It is. I mean, it is a very powerful story. Um, and a lot of on this show, certainly we talk to a lot of people who have, gone through tragedy, gone through challenges, whether it's their own or, as in your case, losing a parent, or I've spoken to so many people now across these 150, I don't know how many episodes, but more than that, where it always is an inspiring story in some way. The pain doesn't go away. It isn't really it isn't replaced um, by philanthropy or doing good
No,
or impacting lives, but alongside of it, we're able to walk a path uh, of impact. And so I think
exactly.
that that's kind of how it feels. But in
I
terms
always
of,
say it begins with loss. It all starts
yeah,
with loss. And
it
it's like you
does.
have to go through something horrible to get through to the next chapter. And I don't think any of us get off this planet without getting handed a bad hand. We don't all get a perfect hand every time. And we all get a bad card. And it's really how we play it, right? You don't know until you're handed it how you're going to play it. You don't know. You think, oh, you don't know. This just happened to be, I was also handed a bad card and an opportunity, or at least I saw it clearly as an opportunity. Someone might not see that, but I saw that as an opportunity. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not
Yeah.
losing my mother, but the opportunity to
Yeah,
do
of
something
course.
about it, right?
Well, it's a loss lesson, it's a lesson that comes from loss, but it also is um when we don't have a choice in a way, but to take our focus off of ourselves, we end up, turning toward other people. It's like when that person, mentioned that situation to you and it kind of clicked for you. Um, you were in that frame of mind to make someone's life better, you know, and that is a very human thing. It's a very human thing for us to uh, experience something painful, and it can be a loss, it can be a failure in business, it can be any kind of thing. It can be just some bad situation, bad outcome, an
Right.
unpreferred outcome, and then feel like I want to do something for someone else. And I see that over and over again. Um,
It
you know?
really it shifts everything when you take the focus off yourself and turn it to someone else. Everything's better. I always say there's no silver bullet for happiness, but if there was one, it would be helping another person. If there's one thing you could do if you were sad or depressed or lonely or anything, If you went out and did one nice thing for someone else, that is the single greatest thing you can do.
Yeah. And the feeling is really incomparable. Um, it's and the less we get out of it, the better. Like when we're doing a for-profit enterprise, um, and these days certainly we like to have meaning associated with it. We like it to be mission driven or purpose driven so that people are benefiting from what we're doing. And maybe that's in the work that we're doing for the client. We're helping them and it's a for-profit enterprise, but still I'm like I feel with my business. I tend to work with mission driven clients.
Right.
So that's great. I have a little piece of the success that they have in the good they're trying to do, but it's not philanthropy. But at the same time, when you do it just for the the positive outcomes, you feel a greater sense of fulfillment when you do it.
The benefits of service are they all, the expression is you get more than you give, which is the truth. But I mean, there's actual physiological benefits. There's a helper's high. You actually have serotonin release when you do something kind, and your cortisol, your stress goes down. It combats mental depression and loneliness because it creates human connection when you do something for another person. You work on your networking skills when you're in community and volunteering and gathering. It's great for your career. And then the holy grail of all of it is you find your purpose, like why you're here on this earth, which is what ended up happening to me through, all of these things that happened. So many things. I mean, spiritual care was kind of the first step of the journey, but the road to enlightenment is a long one, and it wasn't what I was looking for, but it's what happened. So that's the ultimate gift if you continue down the path, I think of service. But the first three aren't bad either. You could just
Yeah.
start with a little helper's high and go from there.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about the podcast. Tell me about some of the
Well,
people
so
you
what really
interviewed.
happened for me after starting a nonprofit and running it for 5 years, I just want to know who these crazy people were who do this work. And at the time, 15 years ago, when I started Charity Matters, before it was a podcast, it was a blog, which it still is. People subscribe, and I have thousands of people who like to read the conversations versus listen to them. Um, but there was no CNN heroes, there was no People Magazine heroes among us. There was no really, and we've also lost our heroes, right? I mean, you and I grew up with heroes on TV. Everything was about a hero.
Yeah.
But today, we went from Mr. Rogers to the Kardashians, and somewhere along the way, we lost something, right? And I'm not saying that they're not a nice family. I'm sure they're delightful, but we lost something. And so I wanted to find those people and start interviewing them and finding out what their origin story was. And so, kind of like Guy Raz, how I built this podcast, when he
Oh
does really
yeah.
the
Yeah.
back entrepreneurial story. I was even doing my podcast before he was doing his, and his is phenomenal, by the
Yeah, I
way.
love his
Huge
show. Yeah.
shout out to that guy. He's fantastic, pun intended. He's fantastic. But it's the same story that I tell because the people who start nonprofits are also entrepreneurs, but they are starting businesses that serve other people, that rely on the kindness of others. It's a horrible business model, but it's still a business. And something happened to all of them, like me, that took their life in a U turn, and they knew they had to do this. And so I love these stories. I love the humans that I meet. These people are the best in humanity. I mean, the best. And they've all, I would say 96% of them have undergone, 95 have undergone some major loss, kind of like we talked about. And then I would say like 5%, maybe 10, have had a near miss in life, something that was such a close call, but they had such gratitude that that's what spurred them to act. So most of the people have had a loss, and the others have had immense gratitude from an experience that changed their life.
One of the things that I think about is what's missing in the world or what we need more of in the world. Um, and I feel like when we're talking about heroes, I was thinking, in a way, the standard for humanity has gone down. Like that's what it feels like in the world.
That's fair.
Like
Yeah, I think that's
what's
fair.
what's expected of a human being
Right.
has gone down.
Yeah. How did that
And
happen? How did that happen? I don't
well,
understand, but it did. You're right. I agree with that.
yeah, I think, we all have our opinions, and I always think that everything is cumulative. You can't just put, you can't just say, oh, this happened because of this. It's usually
Right.
cumulative. And that's a good thing too. Like, usually it's a confluence of good things that end up in a good result, not just one thing. So I'm not a believer in the flip switching thing where it's just good or bad. But I think that, what has happened in society over, maybe a couple of decades is that uh, we've gotten lazy about being human. And so part of it's technology. Technology has something to do with it. I think, entertainment and media have something to
Right.
do with it too. But it it is unfortunate that we are in that kind of lull of real deep human feeling. And
I would
and
say, I would add to that list, and I would say that um, we became a global community and not, we lost sight of our local communities.
oh
And I
yeah.
think that when we, even as prehistoric man in our little tiny tribes, our villages took care of one another. Our most innate to survive, we had to take care of one another. And even through the 50s and 60s, before media really the landscape of media had changed, our communities in the 70s when I was growing up, our communities were very tight. We played baseball in the same community. We went to school in the same community. We went to church in the same community, wherever that was. And we all took care within our community. And somewhere along the way, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be feeding children in Africa, and that isn't important and all those things. But if everyone took care of their own community, we wouldn't have to go to these global places. We should be looking at our own neighbor. And I will say too, this for Charity Matters. We have 1.6 million nonprofits in the United States alone. And I do not do international causes. And not that I don't care about people around the globe. And I don't do animals and I don't do trees. I love animals and I love the environment. But people need to take care of people in their community. And so I focus on that. And I think if all of us just focused just on our local community, just on doing one little thing for our neighborhood, our next door neighbor, our church, our school, our community center, any little thing for our community, if we all just did the tiniest bit where we live, that's how we move the needle. That's how we
Yeah.
bring it back.
Yeah, and there's a couple of thoughts that inspires for me. One is that when we're doing that, we are in a very giving space, and in that space, we may be inclined to help people outside
Right,
of our communities, and whether it's
right,
in our own countries or by
right.
extension other countries, but we're already kind of in an impactful mode. And along with that thought, what I would say is that with global connectivity comes a shallowness of connection. So, in other words, we're lightly connected to a much bigger world.
Right.
So, we are,
Connected but not connected. That's what we like to call it in
yeah.
our house.
What did
We
you
see
say?
people on connected but not connected.
Yeah.
My husband and I were actually on a cruise years ago, and the purser comes on, ding, 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 and it's a lovely English accent and says, "Oh, good afternoon. Join us today on the deck for our seminar. Are you connected but not connected?" And my husband and I look around the dining room at breakfast on our first cruise ever, and all these couples are alone. They're together, but they're on their phones, but they're not
Yeah.
talking. And so Ron and I, whenever my husband and I, whenever we see people on their phones or our children, we're like CBNC, connected but not
Yeah.
connected. They are
Yeah.
sitting together, but they are not in conversation. They are not connected in dialogue or community. They are staring at their phones. And
Yep.
it's connected but not connected, which is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And it
Right.
goes, it goes, Heidi, with it goes hand in hand with this idea that we know a little about a lot of stuff. So
Right.
we may think we care about causes here and there and all over the place,
Right.
but really our bandwidth is not as human beings, I mean, science has proven our bandwidth for relationships is much narrower than we think. So if we have 5,000 friends on Instagram,
Right.
even if we're connected, or Facebook, even if we're engaged with them, we're actually diluting our relationships. So if we were to follow what you're proposing and say, okay, well, let's really go deep at home. Let's really go deep locally.
Mhm.
Home as in our real home and home
Right.
as in our community, and really
Right.
go deep. We could really tap into our ability to care,
Yep.
and maybe that answers that thing that you asked a little bit ago. Why is our standard for humanity a little lower? I think it's possibly because our relationships are more shallow. And so if our depth of feeling
Right. I think that's,
about
yeah.
mankind is limited to this box
Right. Right.
and whatever we can fit into it and extract from it, then why would we be super caring? Because you
And
can't.
loneliness
Yeah. Yeah.
is such a, an outcome of the device. People are lonelier than ever. And if we when we come together in community, especially volunteering, especially helping other people, it's the best way to combat loneliness because you're helping other people and you're creating connection and you're creating relationships and you're doing good together. It's just the ultimate. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really kind of what I preach and what I practice and I know it's kind of a back to basics, but I kind of laugh. Growing up in the '70s, we all had our thermoses and our our milk
Lunch
cartons or
boxes and
whatever, and now we're back to the thermoses again, right? Like
yeah.
right. We it all comes full circle, and so I think it's just a time that we have to get back to some of these things like glass bottles, thermoses, and helping each other. It's just
Yeah.
it's kind of basic stuff.
Yeah, and community. Um, I have another thought I want to share, and then I want to get a final thought from you. But before we
Yeah.
get to kind of the wrap up part, tell our audience where they can find you.
You can find me at Charity Matters, which is charity-matters.com. When I find the person that is holding the domain name without the dash, 15 years for hostage. I have a special word for that guy. But at
And it's a charity
charity-matters.com.
website. It's called
Yeah, I
Charity
know, right?
Matters.
Charity Matters, charity-matters.com. We're Charity Matters on Instagram. And you can find my book Change for Good on Amazon. And yeah, we can find us. We're pretty much, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All the everything is Charity Matters.
Okay, great. And I was gonna say, I was just in, like I mentioned before the show, I was just in Miami, and I stayed at a hotel in Miami Beach, which was right where I grew up, but I stayed in the little community where my school was and my high school and all of that.
Oh,
And of course, it's changed quite a bit.
right,
And I'm walking around and I'm looking at it, and I've been there since, but I haven't really stayed in that area since. And I was very nostalgic for, my childhood and, my friends and I we used to run from the school to this candy store, that was there. And
right,
and I think that's where those deepest feelings reside. So if we can all get in
100%.
touch with our deepest kind of most nostalgic connections, like you mentioned with the thermos, you know,
Right,
let's get back to that. It is back to basics. Basics is where
right.
our hearts are.
It's
And then,
it's what makes us human is just doing these,
yes,
really simple things that we've always done.
yeah. Well, thank you for being on the show, and I would love to get a closing thought for you when this airs. It probably will be, it won't be that long. We won't be in the new year yet, but we'll be in that holiday feeling. We'll be in that holiday mode, so people might have their hearts open a little bit more than usual. Even any thoughts as people look toward a new year, a new beginning?
I think people are always, spending billions of dollars on self-help books, trying to get thinner and richer and be all sorts of things. But I think that maybe we're focusing on the wrong thing. I think we should be focusing on helping one another. We're all here to serve each other in whatever way that is, whether it's just, calling an aging parent or visiting a neighbor that's lonely. It's not a huge act. It's this tiny, small act of kindness. That's all you need to do. If you can just do one little act of kindness a day, just one little thing, I think that would be a beautiful way to celebrate the season and to roll into the new year. I think that's the best thing you can do for yourself and everybody else to change for good.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.